This is WycombeSound on 106.6 with Chris Isaac and Wicked Game. As mentioned, coming up next Thursday, the 17th of October. How can it be the 17th of October? A brilliant one-man show called I've Got to Be Me, starring, it's a one-man show. Danny John-Jules, who you might know from Red Dwarf, you might know from Strictly, you might know from Death in Paradise, you might know from Maid Marian, you might know from... He's been in lots of things. And... you may not associate him with sort of one-man variety show, but I'm very pleased to say we can chat to him now and find out a little more about the sort of preparations for it. And I guess, Danny, that your background isn't something which people would associate with variety and song and dance show.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to 1974 with a film called Seven Green Bottles. And, you know, I've been slugging away all this time, and the reason I've come back to ground zero nearly, which is, you know, where I started my career in variety. I was working with the likes of Norman Wisdom and Jimmy Clarbuck and Vicky Henderson and Alvin Stardust and all these people. And the culture with those guys, you know, the whole thing, the show must go on and all of that stuff, you know, and that's how I came up. And so now I'm going right back to the Sammy Davis thing, which, you know, it doesn't matter. Anyone in that business, they're no different to Sammy. He's just doing exactly what everybody else in vaudeville and variety was doing, which was, you know, eking a living out on the road because that was where the business was. You know, like in England, it was in the seaside towns that are now, you know, not as lively as they used to be in the days of variety.
No, exactly, and obviously something that you're very drawn to as well.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, in all those years, the people that have watched me on telly and all of that stuff, they might not have a clue that, you know, that was my background. And, you know, I just felt the urge after doing Strictly that, you know, all that razzmatazz and glitz and glamour, it, you know, as far as light entertainment's called, what, you know, used to be called variety, you know, Strictly is the biggest show. And, you know, if you're ever going to get in front of an orchestra, that's the one to get in front of.
I was going to say, of all the roles that you're sort of known for, I guess Strictly that's been a sort of precursor to this.
Yeah, but half of that band used to play in my demos in 1987 when I was in the show with them. Dave Archer's first show in the West End. I was playing one of the lead roles in it. You know, so I met Dave Archer in 1987. So I already knew after band when I got to Strictly. So, you know, my main influence in that show was those guys. They're the best in the business. And when you hear the music that you grew up, you know, in your career, and you hear that band behind you, to have a band of that quality behind you, you had to be Sammy or Frank Sinatra. No one else could afford that band. For me to get that sound behind me, and I thought, that injected the whole thing to get back on stage and do some of that live stuff, you know.
Because this particular show, it must really sort of encourage you to really sort of transform yourself back to that time and also sort of perform in that way.
Well, that's the industry that, you know, for me, because I've experienced it, basically disappear. And so, you know, it's very rare that you will ever see a performance like that of, you know, an entertainer just getting on stage and entertaining people instead of having all the, you know, the sort of isms that come along with it nowadays, you know, unless you've been chiseled in a biology lab somewhere, you know, looking a bit, where Sammy, you know, was what you got, you know, 5'4", 3 broken noses, you know, and nothing glamorous to help him except his talent.
And what were some of his other sort of characteristics that you admire?
The thing I admire is people that live for their art, you know, and you know, because it doesn't matter what art you are in, you're going to have to give up a lot of your private life to be that good. It's impossible not to. And those are the stories that fascinate people because they're Marmite characters. If you look at all the people that everybody loved, they are Marmite characters. Marlon Brando, Humphrey Bogart, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra. They are all kind of, you know, Marmite characters. And, you know, I think that that's what you need, really, to be that performer. There's got to be a little bit of madness in there.
No, definitely. It's a great opportunity for an audience, isn't it? Both older who, you know, sort of like that sort of stuff originally, but also younger audiences to be introduced to it as well.
Well, where are you going to see a 60-year-old woman in the theatre with a mother and her son? You know, I mean, that's what I saw. It's like, wow, you know, that's random. You know, it's not often you see that audience together who can actually celebrate a show or go out and have an evening out and be in that nice sort of diverse audience. Those are the only characters that can do that. I mean, if you look at a typical showbiz audience and then look at Michael Bublé's audience, you'll see the difference, because he's doing that kind of stuff. And, you know, he comes out once a year, smashes it out around the world and goes. I just wanted to get back on stage. That was it, really. And I thought to myself, if I was going to be in a show now on stage, I said, what one would it be? And what character would I play? And then I was thinking, I looked at all the shows in town and I thought, well, there was nothing that I would go, wow, I want to do that. You know, so my thing was, all right, I'll have to do my own one. So, yeah, and that's basically what happened. Because I'd already been in 6 West End shows. So, you know, it was, what am I going to do now? You know, I've already, you know, I did that, you know, my first West End show in 1982. So I was really, I'd been there and done that. And that's why I was thinking, right, I've done 6. Now, what would I be in here now that I can actually go forward on? And, you know, what would be new to me and what would be a challenge? If you ain't scared when you go on stage, then you haven't been pushed.
So what's the process been like of putting this show together?
Stress. As long as if you say Frank Sinatra or playing Frank Sinatra or playing, you know, that's why I specifically told I am not playing Sammy Davis Jr. I do not have the weaponry to play him. Why hadn't it been done already? In the whole of the history of show business, why has nobody played Sammy Davis Jr. in a movie or in a biopic or anything? Because who can do it all? That was the challenge. How dare you mention Sammy Davis's name in your show? You know, so that's the challenge. Is, you know, can I tell his story convincingly enough? And that's enough stress, you know, to put a whole rugby team under.
It must be great to sort of put your own kind of spin and reflection and personality into it as well, though.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody, we could give the same story to everybody, but are they going to tell it the same? No, they're not, because we all have different tastes. So when an artist comes along who can bring all of those people together and all thinking the same thing, man, that's the greatest entertainer I've ever seen. It wasn't one person that said it. Everybody said it. And if they didn't, you show me the person who's going to stand up and say, I'm better than Sam. Well, then they're all out there. Ask Michael Bublé. He's the best. He's the biggest right now, isn't he? I mean, if you're talking big band, you're going to say Michael Bublé. Ask him if he's better than Sammy. You know, he's singing some Sammy songs in his show, isn't he? So there you go. You know, ask him if he's better than Frank. You know, I mean, that's not to say that you're trying to put people against each other. You're just saying what a difficult subject it is, you know, and that's not Joe Public talking. We're talking, you know, this is the industry talking. The difference is most people are stars because the general public like them. It doesn't mean to say they're good. It means that they are popular. Whereas when the industry says you're the best, there's no argument. And so those were the big challenges for me. It's no different when I saw the Cat character. The challenge of is this guy just going to be seen as just another stereotypical flash talking, jive shuffling and all of that character that we saw in the old blaxploitation films? No, the heck he wasn't. You know, so those were the challenges. So, and I like challenges. Or playing a Cockney Rastafarian in Maid Marian.
That was fantastic as well. I read on your website, actually, that there's talk of that coming back.
Well, I did. There was a reunion a couple of years ago. In fact, I was with little Mike Edmonds at his film premiere at the film festival the other day. You know, so I was literally with one of the cast members, you know, last week. You know, we always keep in touch, you know, and, you know, like you do, talk about the old days and all of that. And, you know, those characters, you know, whether it be, you know, the Caribbean cop, you know, it's, you know, the battle was, how do I be credible? and still, be accepted in the remit of what the industry, inverted commas, wants out of that character. And, sometimes you have to get abrasive, and you become, because, not because you know more than them. It's just that you want that character to be credible to the people that you are representing. It's no good everybody loving him that lives in, Brixton or the Gorbals. You want them in the Caribbean to say, "My God, what a great character." Well, I bumped into a British policeman at the bike show in Birmingham at the NEC, and I was just walking, and he came up to me and said, he goes, "Your character," he goes, "Oh man," he goes, "I worked in the Caribbean," and he said, "I did have to go and get my men out of the bar." And that was from a British policeman who worked in the Caribbean. He came up to me and he said, "Mate, he did have to do that." So for me, if I go to Sainsbury's and the old West Indian, "Oh, me never miss it, me love your show," and then the next minute a policeman's going, "Mate, I tell you, I wanted to get me mates out." Yeah, to me that says more than anything else that comes. The fact that they believed in your character. So whereas this show's different. I haven't got any character to lean on. It's just Dannii telling the story. So that's how if you really start breaking it down. But that's why it's great just to be on stage, one man. The reason I got to know about Sammy in the first place is that I was on my first show. I was a dancer in a troupe called the Second Generation. I was one of Lena Zavaroni's dancers at the BBC on her TV show. But I was doing my first show in the Isle of Wight, and this is what I'll tell you about seaside towns. That's where I started. I started on the end of a pier at the Isle of Wight with Dickie Henderson and Jimmy Tarbuck. So, Dickie Henderson was the Frank Sinatra of England, wasn't he?
Of course.
So his musical director, this old boy, my first ever solo was the song that Sammy did in Sweet Charity, Rhythm of Life. That was my first ever solo in my first ever show. So my first ever number in my first ever show was a Sammy Davis Jr. number.
Wow. And now look at you.
And there you go. And so the musical director, Dickie's musical director, he said, "You should play Golden Boy." And then I was like, "What's Golden Boy?" And that was the musical that Sammy did on Broadway and at the Palladium. So when Sammy came to London, he did a musical at the London Palladium, and the London Palladium is where I did my first musical.
Oh, so many links.
Mate, there's a reason for everything.
Of course.
And I said, organic, you can't beat it.
Well, it's been brilliant to speak to you. What would you, just finally, your main message to people who are thinking of coming out and seeing you next week?
Support live theatre, because that's where all the stars come from. Well, that's right. I mean, if you've got a theatre, why aren't you promoting live theatre? I mean, that's it, isn't it? That's why we're trying to stop them from all being closed down. That's why the seaside theatres are in trouble, because that industry is old hat. That's what creates, it creates employment. If you have a theatre running, you've got all the people in the theatre working, the audience come in, the economy is being spent within the community. And basically, who wouldn't want that? That's why the people like that who, they love theatre. And that's it, So you see what I mean? It's all those little bits and bobs that there was a style and a class about these guys, I think above all. If you look at them all, if you look at all those variety artists, all of them drove Rolls Royces. They always wanted class.
Well done to you for keeping this form of entertainment alive.
Well, this is it. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? We're entertainers. What you definitely know is I'm not doing it for the money. So there you go. That's your first comfort. The lovey is not doing it for the money. Okay. So that logistically you could see that. And it's coming from a point of admiration for a man who made it through the most amazing adversity to still succeed. That takes a miracle worker, a genius, and all the rest of it. It's a homage, It's taking your hat off not only to Sammy, but to all of those guys. Let's not make no bones about it. This is an enormous undertaking that is every time we run through this show, we have to change something, because we have to make it more real. We have to make it more not sound like it's a fantasy or a fabrication. But, you know, with my research, I mean, you know, this is stuff that is, you know, you can find out. If people were looking, they could find it. But, you know, what it is, you have to compress it and put it out there. So you set those little, think, oh, I'm going to have to look up that bit. I want to know more about that bit. You know, because I've got a lot of that in the foyer. Oh, I didn't know that, she said. There's a lot of them going, I didn't know that.
No, it's brilliant to speak to you.
It's not only as you know, you got what you wanted, which was an interview,
yep,
but you also got this wonderful story to tell at your cocktail party.
Oh no, we're dining out on that.
Lovely.
It was great to speak to Dannii and find out a little more. Next time at a cocktail party, I'll be able to chat loads more about Sammy Davis Jr. Dannii is on at Wycombe Swan next Thursday, the 17th, in his one-man show, I've Got to Be Me. You can find out more by checking out the Wycombe Swan website, wycombeswan.co.uk.
Love music, love talk, love Wycombe Sound.